Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of doing a grammar video or an English language video, we're going to be doing a computer science video. And we're going to be using the program Scratch in order to do this. Now Scratch is a free program that you can access through this URL, scratch.mit.edu. It's created by MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and as I say, it's free to use for anyone. Signing up, you just need an email account to create an account with, and then once you do that, you can save projects to then come back and build on them over multiple days or even over the course of weeks or months. But even if you just wanted to try it out, you can do everything that I'm going to do today without creating an account, just so that you can kind of see what's going on. So when you go to Scratch, you will see something like this home screen. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to click this Create button. When you do that, you're going to create a new project. And every time you click that Create button, it'll create a new project that will just be completely blank like this. The only thing that is in any Scratch project to start with is ScratchCat right here. And ScratchCat is an example of a sprite. If you look down here at this bottom right, it says Sprite 1. That's what ScratchCat is called officially. It's Sprite 1 in your program. When you are programming in Scratch, what you're really doing is taking these sprites and adding code in the form of these blocks over here to make these sprites do different things. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we'll want to choose what sprite we want to use for the rest of this program. So to get rid of ScratchCat, you see this little trash can with an X on it. I can click that, ScratchCat goes away, and then I can go down here to this cat face image and I can choose a sprite. And Scratch has a lot of different sprites. You can divide by category by choosing these little buttons up here. And I'm just going to pick this bat for now, just for the sake of time. But if you want to pause the video and go through and look at all of them, that's of course totally fine. Okay, now that we've picked a sprite, the next thing that we need to do is give our sprite a backdrop. And what a backdrop is in Scratch is it's effectively the background of your project. To add a backdrop, we're going to go right next to this ScratchCat face and click on this little button that looks like a picture of two mountains. When you click on it, you'll see the pre-built backdrops that Scratch has. Now I'll show you in just a second how to draw your own backdrops and your own sprites. But for now, just go ahead and pick one of the ones that Scratch has pre-built in. So I'm going to pick this wetland right here. And you see my bat, I can move him around by clicking on him, and I can position him wherever I want in this wetland. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to show you how to draw your own sprites and your own backdrops now. By hovering over this cat face icon and choosing on the paint option, it will bring up a little blank page right here. And then from there you can use the drawing tools. If you've ever used Microsoft Paint or anything like that, these should be pretty familiar. You have a brush tool that you can use to kind of scribble. You have a paint bucket tool that you can use to fill in an area. But in order to fill in an area, you have to draw an area first, and then you can use that paint bucket tool to fill in inside it. Now right now it's not working for me, because the paint bucket tool a lot of times will only work if you are clicking on an already existing object. So for example, I can make this square purple, but I can't fill in the inside of the square. If I wanted to fill in the inside and it's not wanting to let me do that, I can click this Convert to Bitmap button. The reason this works is a little bit complicated. It has to do with different types of graphics, but the upside is that I can then click this paint bucket, click on the inside of that square, and it fills it in like I want it to. And then I can click back to this Convert to Vector to get back to where I was before. There are a couple of other tools like the Circle tool, which you can use to draw circles, the Square tool you can use to draw squares. Now, the thing to notice is that all of these drawings that I've done are all sort of combined into this one sprite. And if I click to move one around, they all will move at once. So keep that in mind when you're drawing your own sprites, that you want to do each shape or each figure or whatever separately. So I actually don't want to keep any of these, so I'm just going to click this trash can. And to draw your own backdrops, it's the same thing. You're going to hover over the backdrop, go up to the paintbrush, and then you have the same options. So you can draw your own backdrops. Now, you'll notice that my wetland went away. To get it back, I'm going to go to these backdrops here. I'm going to select the one that I want to show up in my little preview screen over here on the right. Okay, so now that we have our sprite, we have our backdrop, we can then modify our sprite by changing its costume. So when I click on the bat, you'll notice that there are 3 tabs over here. I have code, costumes, and sounds. We'll do costumes first, and then we'll talk about sounds, and then we're going to build a short little code as our first program, and that'll be the end of the video. So to change our bat's costume, again, we have these same drawing tools. And I can go in and change the fill color to whatever I want. So let's say instead of a red nose, I'm going to give this bat a blue nose. I'm going to make it kind of a bright blue. I'm going to click my paint bucket tool, and then when I hover over different parts of the bat, you'll see they change color. So I'm going to click on his nose to make it, instead of red, I'm going to make it blue. And I can then modify or add more to the bat if I want. I can also draw in the costume if I wanted to make him have a little speech bubble or something like that to say something. I could draw that in. And if I draw something and decide I don't want it, there is the eraser tool here, but you have to be a little bit careful with it, because if you accidentally erase part of the bat, then it's really hard to draw that back. So the easier way to do it is with this undo button up here. And so you have this undo and redo. If you just keep clicking the undo button, eventually it'll undo all of the things that you've done to this sprite. You have to do it while you're still selected on the sprite, but it can be a really good way as you're drawing, if you mess up, to just go back. Okay, you also will notice that the bat has several different sort of positions that he can be in. And notice that when I change the nose color, it only changes it in one costume at a time. So if I wanted to make them all blue, I have to go through for each one and change it. So I've got my bat. I'm going to make him be in this sort of flapping position. Now let's look at our sounds. Right now it says the sound is the owl, and if I press this play button, it makes a little noise. If I wanted to change that sound or add a new sound, I can go down here to where it says choose a sound, and I'm going to go up and use the magnifying glass to choose a different sound. Just like with sprites and backdrops, Scratch has a ton of sounds that you can scroll through with all of these buttons here, or you can just go through. If you hover over the play button for each one, it will play the sound for you, which is just kind of cool. So I'm going to pick a cricket sound, just again for the sake of time. And now that we have a sound, we have our sprite, we have our backdrop, we have our sprite costume changed if you wanted to do that. Now let's go to code, and we're going to add our first little bit of code and create a little program for our sprite. Most Scratch code is going to start with one of these yellow blocks called events. And for now, we're going to choose this when green flag clicked event. This is probably the most basic event. And what it does is when you click this green flag up here, anything below this block will run, meaning that it will happen. So let's do one thing, and then we'll build off of that. So the first thing I want to do is when the green flag is clicked, I want my bat to turn 15 degrees. So when I click the green flag, this bat is going to turn 15 degrees to the right. So I'll click it once, and you'll see the bat moves just a little bit. And I can click it over and over. If I click it a bunch, he starts spinning. Okay, now, what if I wanted him to do a full circle? Well, I could click a bunch like I just did, or I could find a way to tell my computer to do that over the course of however many times or however many repetitions it needs to do to make him spin a full 360 degrees in a circle. So to do that, we're going to go to the control blocks. And we're going to find a block that says repeat 10. And this block, I always think of it as like an alligator mouth, because what it does is it chomps other blocks like this, and you can put other blocks inside it. And this block, I'm just going to show you, it will extend no matter how much stuff you put in there. Now, if you have some code, like I just put a bunch of random code in here that you don't want, you can always drag it over to the code bit right here and just let go, and that will delete it. So right now it says repeat 10, turn 15 degrees. So when I click my green flag, instead of just turning a little bit, now it's going to turn all the way like that. If I click it again, it's going to go almost to a full circle, and then if I click it again, it's going to go past a full circle. So what I need to do is figure out what is 360 degrees divided by 15. And it turns out that answer is 24. So if I repeat 24 times, what this should do is it should go in a full circle. Now notice that my bat is kind of pointing to the right now, or his head is. So that would be where we expect him to end up after this full circle. And there we go. Now, right now our bat is facing to the right, and we want him to face up when he does this. So what we want to do is you go to the motion blocks again, and these blue motion blocks have a bunch of different things that we can do with our bat, but what we want him to do is point in the direction 90 degrees. And that will make him always point upwards, or always point sort of facing whatever direction he normally would face. So if I do this, if I rotate my bat a little bit first, press my green flag a few times, take that code off, do the point in direction 90, he snaps back to face upwards. And then I can reattach this repeat 24. And as you can see, these blocks work like little puzzle pieces. You just kind of put them together however you want, and the code will run or it won't. But you can always take them apart and put them off to the side if you're not using them, or delete them if you're done. So now our bat should spin in a full circle. He is still facing upwards, so that's good. Now let's have him change color. To do that, we're going to go to our Looks tab, and we're going to go to a block that says Change Color Effect by 25. Now this 25 number is a little bit complicated to explain, so for now I'm just going to say that the more you increase the number here, the more drastic the color change will be for each repetition of that color change. So we're going to leave it at 25 for now, and then I'll drop it down to about 5 and show you what that looks like. So when I click it now, my bat, as you can see, his nose, and you can see his wings change a little bit too, but the nose is where you see most of it, is going to change pretty rapidly. If I drop it down to 5, you'll see his nose only changes a little bit, and it's not nearly as fast or as drastic. And if I up it to something like 100, you'll see it changes very rapidly. So you can play around with those numbers, and you can obviously play around with the repeat number to make it repeat more than once, or turn more than once, etc., etc. If you want it to turn more than 15 degrees at a time, that's totally fine as well. But this is our first program in Scratch. We used a when the green flag click block. We pointed our sprite in a specific direction, and then we had it repeat to turn and change colors. In future videos, we're going to do much more complex projects that will involve loops and conditionals and all sorts of things like that. But this is a really good way to just get started in Scratch, to practice drawing your own sprites, to practice adding your own backdrops, and things like that. The last thing that I will show you is if you wanted to add the sound that we added a little bit ago, there is a sound tab or sound blocks over here, and you can drag out the play sound until done. And I'm going to play it at the end of all this code. So after it repeats, then it'll play the sound. So notice that it spun around the whole 360 degrees before it played the sound. That's one of the first lessons in coding that you'll learn, is that in Scratch at least, things work from the top down. So if I have this when the green flag clicked, and then I add this play sound at the very end, it will not play until everything else that comes before it is done. If I wanted to do it at the same time as it's spinning, how do you think I would do that? Take a few seconds to think about it. So one way that I would do it is I would simply add another when the green flag clicked. And this is something that you can do anytime. And this way these codes will run in parallel. So it'll always be spinning and it'll be making the sound at the same time. Just like that. Okay, that's enough, and this video is getting pretty long as it is already. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop, and I hope you will join me next time when we make our first game in Scratch.